Hello everyone, I hope you're doing well today. In the previous episode, we talked about the most common type of fears that emerge throughout our life and that also block a lot of our professional life. And we stopped talking in one of the fears that makes us stagnate and sometimes never to take action. Now, in this channel, we talk about mental programming for success, and knowing how to navigate these fears is an essential part of this programming. So stay until the end because today we will finish attacking those fears. So let's start with the fear of what if I'm wrong? And no, this is not a repetition of what we talked about in the previous episode. And let's make the difference right here. Failure is something that you want to have. There's something you want to do, and things do not come out as expected. And that leaves a feeling of pain and frustration most of the time. Now, the fear of being wrong is associated with the fear of making the wrong decision. In economics, we call this the opportunity cost. And in psychology, it is called the FOMO, or the fear of missing out. Now, this fear emerges in moments of crucial decisions, which represent somehow a before and after, and which design one way in another or another will result in two different life paths. But let's stop right here because this is what makes it so scary. It doesn't have to be so radical. This is where the mind starts going like, if I decide this, if I choose this, if I never get to do this thing, I will never know what it's going to be. What if I'm wrong? Now, this thought is very, very, very strong and is very limiting. And life is long enough to have different experiences and to explore different possibilities. Nothing is set in stone. A decision is a decision, yes. And the actions you take will lead to a result. But if you don't like that result, there are millions of ways to change and to even think of something different, even in the most radical professional and personal situations. Now, there's another type of fear I would like to talk to you, which is a fear of commitment, which most of people think it comes or emerges in personal relationship, but that's not necessarily true. Fear of commitment is associated with having to engage to something or someone, and in certain way it makes us lose some degrees of freedom, of personal freedom. Now, if freedom is very important to you, this fear will emerge very strongly. This fear can also emerge when we do not have enough confidence in ourselves and committing to something that we don't know how we're going to do it at the end. That can be very heavy. And you know what? I better not commit at all. Now, I see this fear in a lot of clients who want to set their own companies or they want to become freelancers, and they have a recurrent limiting belief. And they say often things like, what happens if another job opportunity comes up and I don't want to let it pass? Now, if you're smiling, it's because you have had this experience, and I can tell you something with all the certainty in the world. The day you commit to yourself and to your company or your activity as a freelancer, there will be thousands of job opportunities offered to you, and you will be happily saying, you know what, no, but thanks. Now, another fear that emerges in life, and not only in the personal aspects of our lives, but also in professional aspects, is the well-known fear of death. It becomes even more common or even stronger when you have a family or somebody depends on you, and you will have a tendency to cling to what you have. So usually what happens is we don't embark in new adventures or radical job changes because there is this regular thought that what if something happens to me and I leave that huge responsibility or problem to my family. Now, a few years ago, I had a coaching client. She was a wife of expatriate, and they had been living in, they had lived in 3 countries before we met, and back then she was moving from South Africa to Luxembourg. Now, in none of the previous countries she had been, she was able to work because of the visa status or something like that. So she launched several entrepreneurship projects. She even had a product line, sales website. She also created some associates to develop the internal community where she had been. And she had her own product line that she developed herself. So she was really an entrepreneur person, or she had this spectacular entrepreneurial vibe, and her projects turned out to be quite well. So when we met when she was in Luxembourg and we started doing coaching together, she tells me that she had many ideas, and she even had business plans, like proper business plans done for those ideas, but that still she preferred to look for the safe job. Now, when she told me her story, I didn't see it. I just couldn't see her as an employee in a fixed job. So I started to dig a little bit into her story, and she told me that she was no longer in the same situation as before, and now she had a baby, and if something happened to her husband, she would be exposed. Now, this is an extended fear of death, not fear of my own death. Is the fear of somebody else's death. That fear of death was stopping big projects that would create even more stability than a safe job. Is this understandable? I don't know. I really don't know. What do you think? And finally, there is another fear, in order to close the topic of fears for now, that is the fear of criticism. Now, attention for the people pleasers out there, the very accommodating ones, the ones who do not like to say no, and who believe that everybody has to like you. Now, does really everybody has to like you? Not necessarily, but that is a strong need that we all have as human beings. And now with social networks and the exposure that we have in social media, it has made this even stronger, and it has made some of us less resilient with respects to criticism. Now, the fear of criticism is actually linked to fear of loneliness and to fear of not belonging or even being excluded because my opinion is not aligned with that of others. And also the fear of people do not like me. Now, this fear can slow us down very much, and it does take away some degrees of freedom and even more so authenticity. Now, there you have the 8 fears that are holding back some of the aspects in your professional development, and by the way, they won't go away, so you're gonna have to learn how to navigate them to keep moving forward. Now, if you are wondering, well, Jessica just saying 8 type of fears, but she just mentioned 4, that means that you're gonna have to go and watch the previous episode when we talk about type of fears part 1. Now, I send you a big kiss, and I'll be seeing you in another episode next time.